Welcome to another episode of the Bleed Lows podcast as we are going live on the eve of the upcoming National League Division Series against the Philadelphia Phillies. It's a dudes only session. I'm joined by my fellow co-host Anthony, and we're going to dive into all the topics of the highly anticipated series between the Dodgers and the Phillies. But before that, I got to plug DodgersBeat.com, your go-to site for all Dodgers news, rumors, pregame and postgame interviews, and much more. Be sure to support my work and our fellow writers and never miss a beat on DodgersBeat.com. And like I said, it's a dudes only sesh tonight, Anthony. No Drea to give us her thoughts on the upcoming series. She should rejoin us tomorrow for the pregame show on Saturday. But, first thing I got to ask you, 2 nights off, us Dodger fans didn't have to worry about any playoff baseball because with the sweep, we got our chance to relax. How are you feeling coming into the series? And did you watch any of the Game 3 wildcard action?
I'm feeling good. Nice to be here tonight talking Dodger baseball. It is kind of weird when you get 2 days off in a row. Kind of checked at my phone when I was running errands, like there should be a baseball game on today. Unfortunately, not. And yeah, I had the liberty of actually watching some playoff baseball last night. I celebrated a certain result last night. There's a lot of people in my life that aren't returning my text messages because I might have celebrated a little bit too hard last night. But yeah, it's always the great time of year. It's more peaceful and relaxing watching playoff baseball when your team's not playing, which is crazy. But like it's such a easier kind of just you're a neutral. You don't have to worry about like what decision making is going on. You can just enjoy ball basically, which I did last night.
Yeah, I had the chance to watch a few of the games. I definitely caught, the ending of the Padres and Cubs game. It definitely was a strike. There's no debate about it at the end of the game. But that one was interesting. Cubs kind of just pulled through with what gets you through in the postseason, which is good starting pitching, good bullpen performance, and elite defense. I mean, Dansby Swanson got paid to be above average Gold Glove capable shortstop, and he surely showed that for the Cubs. And it sucks to be a Padres fan. Obviously, you lose last year, and then in the fashion that you did, and then you lose in the first round in the wild card round this year. And I really enjoyed the Yankees-Red Sox game and got a little bit of history with the new wild card format. The first team to win game 1 and then drop the next 2. So sorry for the Boston Red Sox. You are out of here. But yeah, the Yankees move on. The Dodgers, they got the chance to enjoy these 2 days off. But tomorrow, the real action begins. And I mean, let's just jump right into it. We got a lot of updates and news from the Dodgers and the Phillies today. Media day, workout day. Tomorrow, the real thing begins. The first thing we heard of was Otani, obviously game 1 starter for the Dodgers. He'll be taking the mound tomorrow. First pitching appearance for him in the postseason. What are you expecting from Otani tomorrow? Because I feel like there's a lot of anticipation and excitement from Otani, from Dodger fans, Major League Baseball, international fans, all that. I feel like a lot of eyes are going to be glued to their screens when Otani takes the bump tomorrow at Citizens Bank Park. But what are your thoughts on Otani taking the ball?
I'm actually really excited. I think he said himself he's nervous, but I took that more as like nervous energy, kind of like day before the game, your first time playing in the playoffs as a pitcher. I kind of took it more as nervous energy. I don't think he's more nervous of the crowd reaction or anything like that. He's played in other rauncous atmospheres and stuff like that. So I'm kind of looking forward to see what he has. I'm hoping he's able to keep his emotions kind of in check. That first inning might be a little his adrenaline just might be through the roof, and he might want to be throwing like 105 if he wanted to. But it's more important if he goes out there and kind of gets the first 3 batters out immediately and kind of just sets the tone going forward. Like we said before, I think this series specifically is going to be that knockdown, drag out. It's going to get ugly, and I feel like no better way to set the tone if he either gets a hit in his first at bat or he goes out there and strikes out too, and kind of sets the tone going forward for the starters going forward.
Yeah, I think the way I read him saying that, I'm nervous for the start. A lot of Phillies fans on social media kind of took it as like, yeah, we're going to eat him alive tomorrow. I don't think that's kind of what he meant by I'm nervous. I think more of the nervous feelings is just saying, hey, look, I'm in the postseason. I'm taking the mound. No restrictions are on me. And that's kind of just the type of answers he always gives. I think when they asked him in the WBC when he was about to take the mound for one of their games, or the idea of potentially like closing, the World Baseball Classic out against Team USA, he said like the same thing. Like, yes, there's nervousness in it. Like, you know, the whole country's watching. You know, I got a chance to close it out and win the tournament. And he didn't look nervous in that ninth inning. I know it's like they're kind of like glorified exposition games. But, you know, there was still a lot of, you know, hype around that series. And Ohtani, I just don't think there's getting under his skin. I know the Phillies crowd has definitely been known for it. You know, if you watch the series against the Atlanta Braves in 22 and 23, that team just looked like they were rattled when they were playing in Philadelphia, and they ended up losing both of those series because of that. I think this Dodgers team, I think they do have thick skin. I think they've been there and done it before. You know, they played in San Diego last year, and, you know, they had to face a lot of adversity being down 2-1 in the series. And even in the game that they lost, they put the fight right back. They only lost by 1 run when it got really out of hand, thanks to Teoscar Hernandez hitting the grand slam. But Ohtani's a tone setter. He's probably the one guy that I imagine, we kind of touched on this the last time we were live, that I think can really take on that crowd, because I don't think he cares about what they say to him or what they're cheering or what they're taunting. He is going to be dialed in. He's going to pitch like the $700 million man that we think he can be. And I'm really excited to see him take the ball, because especially in that first inning, because say the Dodgers either, you know, they don't score a run, or even if they do score a run, how is Ohtani going to respond? Because I feel like if he throws like a 1-2-3 dominant inning, I think all the leverage just goes to the Dodgers, because Ohtani's just going to continuously feed off that. And they have a plan, I believe, for the game involving Glassnow, which we'll talk about later. But I just have so much confidence in Ohtani, just because he's been waiting for this. I think he's been waiting to get back and pitch in games like this, because he never really got the opportunity to do that with the Angels. Mentioned at the beginning of the October before it started, we're going to get the full two-way player experience, and I'm all for it.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like he's just it's more like antsy nerves at this point. And I like you said, I don't think it's gonna be a moment where he kind of feels overwhelmed by the crowd noise and stuff like that. I think in other ways, I think he kind of feeds off that. I felt like in the New York series, for example, like more the Mets per se, because in the World Series he was hurt. He fed off that crowd noise, and he kind of found it was kind of funny to see him kind of silence that crowd when, especially when he had that monstrous home run that went up to the third deck up there in City Field. And this Dodgers team, like you said, I don't think is going to get frazzled by that crowd environment. I mean, Game 5 of the World Series, they were down, I think 4 or 5 nothing, and you saw how that New York crowd was kind of just eating them alive, and they kind of just like, well, we're gonna either punt this game or we're gonna fight back, and they fought back and they had their opportunity and they came back and won that game. That's why I don't feel this whole atmosphere. Yes, it does play a part into it, but I don't think it's gonna be a as a factor as a lot of people think they say it's gonna be or not.
Yeah, and I think one thing that I've been putting out on social media that I think is a clear advantage to the Dodgers. It is advantage to the Phillies as well, is the way the schedule is lined up. You know, they play tomorrow and then they immediately have the day off. So in my mind, that means they have Ohtani, no restrictions is what it sounds like. So if he wants to go 6-7 innings and he's on cruise control, the Dodgers are definitely. Dave Roberts has been pushing all his starters. A lot of teams around baseball have been pushing their starters to go deeper into games. I think if Ohtani is ready for it, they built him up slowly to make sure that he can go deep into playoff games. I mean, if he doesn't go deep and just put it all out there, then what they did in the regular season just kind of was just null and void. Like, it didn't really matter how they did it then. And them having Sunday off means to me he can release it all on the mound and on the base paths and at the plate, and he can rest and rebound and get his body ready for Monday's game. And if the Dodgers can go up 1-0, steal a game in Philadelphia with Ohtani, that would just, in my mind, that'll just set them up to definitely win this series. I think game 1 is important in any series, but to have Ohtani on the mound, that's a game you got to win. It's a very similar situation to like with the Detroit Tigers with Skubal. Anytime Skubal takes the mound, the Tigers have to win that game to have a shot. The Dodgers not necessarily are in that type of situation, because if they lose game 1, well, they got Blake Snell going game 2. They got Yamamoto going game 3. Dodgers have more pitching options. They have a better offense than the Tigers. But yeah, I think Ohtani, anytime Ohtani takes the mound, it's a must win. And I'm excited to see how the Dodgers react to the crowd in Philly, if they can get an early lead, and if Ohtani can start shutting down these hitters. Because if that's the case, I think the Dodgers are going to be taking a lot of advantage from this series. And we're starting to already see some things swing. I know Vegas updated their odds to now where the Dodgers are the favorites. There are still some media pundits out there for the national guys that are still picking the Phillies, which it is respectable, because I just feel like these two teams are so tightly matched with each other. Like we mentioned on the last show, they've just been dodging each other for a while, and now they're finally meeting in a short series. So anything can happen. But if the Dodgers take game one with Ohtani on the mound, I would definitely like their chances for the rest of the series.
Yeah, I feel like game one is such a pivotal game in any type of series, especially it's such a short series because anything can happen. 7 games is kind of more, okay, if you drop the first game, let's bounce back game two. You still have a lot of room for error. The only concern that I do have with him is kind of if he finds himself in a kind of laborious inning and his pitch count starts to go up, what do you do then? Do you start getting Glass now ready and up in the bullpen, kind of just tossing around, or do you kind of ride Otani and see like, well, let's see what he has here? That's my only fear going into this game. If he's in the fourth inning and say he's already at 80 pitches or something like that, then we have to like start getting Glass now loose and ready and go because I feel like he would have to cover majority of the game. So that's why it's very important to kind of go in there, score first, score often, and score early, and kind of give Otani that cushion that he needs on the mound, so we don't have to go and start burning pitchers immediately into this first game.
Yeah, and that's a great pivot here, because Dave Roberts today also said that Tyler Glasnow would be available in the bullpen for game one exclusively, which it does make sense given the off days that we just mentioned. Glasnow hasn't pitched since last Saturday in Seattle, and even in that outing, he only went like 3 innings. So his arm should be fresh. He's probably itching to get back out there. So I think the game plan probably is involving, you know, I think it's involving him going deeper in the game and entering this game, getting a chance to, make an appearance. And they tried testing it out with Emmett Sheehan the other day, and it just didn't work out the way they had hoped. So maybe they try it with Glasnow. Similar situation as Kershaw faced in Arizona, where that was, his weekly bullpen session before his start. Glasnow is in line with that as well. If he doesn't appear in game one, his next appearance would more than likely be game 4 of the division series. But I mean, if Glasnow comes in, that'll be interesting. He hasn't appeared in the bullpen since I believe 2021. And that was the year he came after he, I think, recovered from Tommy John, and then, or the initial, trade when he got there from Pittsburgh. So it's been a while for Glasnow. It's interesting to see how they use him this postseason. I know a lot of people were saying maybe he should start game 2, but yeah, I'm excited to see what Glasnow can bring, especially if he comes into this. Do you have any, because I know you were pushing the piggyback situation. It seems like Dave Roberts may have heard you.
Yeah, it just really depends on where we're at in game one because say we go out to an early advantage and we just keep scoring, would you burn Glass now in game one to kind of cover those last couple innings? I don't know. I kind of like it's going to depend on Roberts' gut feeling in that point. Basically, if you're up early and Shohei's kind of rolling, then I think that's where you kind of think into the future and be like, well, I'd rather save Glass now for game four, a game four scenario. But if it's a close knit game and say it's like 2-2 heading into the sixth, do you use Glass now there and you kind of piggyback off them? Don't burn your high leverage guys like Roki or Blake Trinan, or it's kind of just dependent on scenarios. I don't know. It's kind of more. I just want to see where we're at going into that game. Ideally, yeah, I would like to use Tyler Glasnow in game one. You kind of want to worry about the game in front of you. You don't want to worry about game four because what if we don't get to a game four kind of scenario? So you kind of just want to win games that are in front of you. So game one, ideally, I would have Shohei go as far as he can, whether it's 6 innings, 7 innings, whatever, and then I'll just have Tyler Glasnow kind of just finish the game off for me, depending on where we're at.
Yeah, I think that's going to be something that Dave Roberts is going to manage. And if there's an opportunity that should arise that Glasnow can enter the game in a pivotal spot, whether it's to get the final 6 or 9 outs of the game, that sounds like a good recipe for success. So I would feel confident. That would mean in my mind that the Dodgers are winning that game. So if you can have Glassnow enter at a good time, pivot to potentially the new Dodgers closer in Roki Sasaki. It seems like he's going to be used in more high leverage situations now, according to Dave Roberts. So that's going to be exciting to see. But yeah, I think that's a perfect plan for tomorrow, unless the Dodgers just miraculously either blow them out or they're getting on the other end of it. Then you can start using some of your lower leverage guys and saving the rest of them for, the following game. But the other unique advantage for both teams, again, is that since there is an off day, you can kind of use all your high leverage guys and then have off and then use them all again on Monday. And there's no harm, no foul. And I think that's something that both teams are going to take advantage of, because both of these teams' bullpens are bad. Like both fan bases will tell you that. The Dodgers, we saw it firsthand. The Phillies, they had, I believe, horrible September from their bullpen as well. ERA over 4, FIP over 4. They were giving up home runs left and right, where the Dodgers, their FIP was a little more respectable, under 4, around like 3.8, but they were just giving up way too many walks. And that's the one thing we saw in back-to-back games 1 and 2 of the wild card in the 8th inning. Throw a strike, impossible. It was impossible for everybody that came in. That's something that both these teams are both the managers are going to have to, work around. It's like, who do we trust and how often can we use them? And I think these off days give a unique advantage to both teams. We'll see how the Dodgers manager Dave Roberts manages it over the next couple days. But I think in the back of his mind, he has his like kind of guys that he wants to put in there. But we also haven't seen some of the arms. Like we haven't seen Tanner Scott yet. What has he got? I know we've seen so much, so many blown saves. His ERA was over 5. Like he just didn't have a good season this year. But maybe the postseason, everything resets and maybe he has a new mindset. I'm curious to see how the bullpen is used in this series, especially in game 1, depending if Otani does get in a little bit of trouble. But that kind of gets us to our next thing. Like the conversation point is going to be the bullpen this series for both teams, but more for the Dodgers. Is that still, their one big weakness? And is that the one thing you would point to if they lose this series?
It definitely, I wouldn't say weakness, but it is something that is just looming in the back, I think, of every Dodger fan's mind. Like, yeah, we have our starters that can go 6, 7 innings, but I think the last 2 games that we saw, the 8th inning, kind of that's where we ran into trouble. Most of it has to do with command. Like, you can't walk guys, especially in the playoffs, because you're just asking for something to happen if you walk the bases loaded. But that's where I think guys like we haven't brought his name up, but they said Kershaw is going to be in the bullpen, and it just came to the back of my mind right now when you were going off. I was like, well, if the Dodgers do go up and win this first game, I don't know, by a score of 7 or more runs, would you use Clayton Kershaw in that scenario and kind of tell him like, hey, big dog, can you go and get me these last 6 outs, and then you save Tyler Glass for your game 4 scenario? So we'll see where it's at. Most of these guys in the bullpen, yeah, like I would like to see Tanner Scott in the playoffs. I know it sounds crazy, but kind of give him a clean inning against like a bottom half of the Phillies lineup and say like, I don't know, the 7th inning, kind of go out there and like, here's a clean inning for you. Like, just go out there and let's see what you got, basically. Because the only way we're gonna know what they got is if they actually go into the game. Right now, it's all kind of hypothetical. We don't know what he looks like in a playoff scenario because he hasn't had the opportunity to go in there and play yet. So, I guess we'll see going forward. But yeah, I think just if we do end up losing the series, I think a lot of people will end up blaming the bullpen. But I think it's all dependent on what ends up happening. What if the offense goes cold, or like what if our starters just don't have it one game, for example? So I think it's going to be an easy like thing to point out will be the Dodgers bullpen is what failed them. But I think it's all dependent on how this series does play out.
Yeah, and I think I'll touch on Kershaw in a second to kind of go off of that headline, but we haven't seen a lot of the guys in the bullpen. We saw Henriquez didn't look too good, couldn't throw a strike, but the velocity was there, the nastiness or the potential was there. We saw Vesia twice, we saw Blake Trinan twice. I think both of them were fine. Trinan was a lot better than Vesia, and then we saw Dreyer, who I argued was put into like an impossible situation, bases loaded, I believe 1 out. And then he even struggled with the zone just because of the situation I think he was put in. And then we saw Roki Sasaki, who looked fantastic, probably the best performance of the bullpen so far this postseason, but there's still a lot of guys we haven't seen. Kershaw will be added. I believe Anthony Banda will be on the roster as well. Tanner Scott was one name that we haven't seen. Robleski is some guy that they've depended on, especially to give them length. Emmett Sheehan, I imagine he will get another crack at it, especially to kind of give him some more confidence. But I still have all the faith in the world, especially against this Phillies team, which they didn't have any answers against Sheehan at Dodger Stadium a couple weeks ago. So do the Phillies make adjustments against him? Maybe. If not, then Sheehan could be a deadly weapon to use. And the Phillies, like the Dodgers, they have a lot of left-handed slug. Kyle Schwarber, Bryce Harper. They're going to need some of these guys in the bullpen to step up big. And Kershaw could be that guy. I mean, Kershaw's kind of got a weird role where if he is coming exclusively from the bullpen, like somewhere a role we haven't seen with him in quite some time. You probably have to go back to his rookie season when he was playing in the NLCS against these Phillies, in the bullpen, pitching in, not going deep into the game. But is he a bulk innings guy? Is he a guy that just gets like the heart of the Phillies order? Does he just eat innings in a loss or a mop-up win? Like, what is Kershaw's role? How much do the Dodgers trust him? I feel like tomorrow, if they don't go to Glassnow, say the score is one way or the other lopsided, I would be more than happy just putting Kershaw in there. He also hasn't pitched in over a week. I assume he is fresh as well, and I actually trust him to throw strikes. I feel like he would be the one dude that I know would be able to throw strikes, whether he's coming in the middle of an inning, the start of an inning, whatever role you need him. Kershaw, as much as there is fear in the back of my head, he has done really well out of the bullpen in the past. I mean, is Kershaw just the Swiss Army knife of the bullpen, at least in this series?
He's gonna have to slot into that Brett Honeywell Jr. role of last year, kind of just the innings eater. But yeah, I kind of like his role of just being innings eater. And I think at this point of his career too, I think Kershaw doesn't mind it as well. I think his last playoff run, your like last opportunity of being a world champion, I think he's willing to basically do anything at this point, whether it's start a game or come out the bullpen. Yeah, more than so, I feel like the bullpen, I think they're just afraid to make mistakes, and they just keep pitching around the zone and stuff like that. At this point, just throw strikes, man. Like whatever happens, happens at this point. But you can't put major leaguers on via the walk because there's going to be a guy behind him that's going to make you pay for it, and that's what we ended up seeing against the Reds. Yes, the Reds are not a team like the Phillies, but the Phillies will take advantage of that, especially if we don't have the bullpen guys, especially Blake Trinan. I feel like every time we get a runner on first, the opposing team gets that runner is basically guaranteed second base at this point because he's not going to hold them on, and that's something that I feel like will be a detriment as the series goes on if we keep giving guys free bases and they're going to steal guys. They got Trey Turner on the other side, automatic stolen base machine. So I think it's just going to come down to the little things at this point. Who does it best, the Phillies or the Dodgers?
Yeah, that's definitely, especially with the team, these two teams so close in pretty much every single way, whether it's offense, pitching, bullpen, could be the smallest thing is like a defensive miscue, allowing a free base. That could be the difference between winning a game and losing a game, especially in October. We've seen it time and time again. Um, you know, Kind of moving on here, probably the next biggest storyline, at least for tomorrow, is the status of Will Smith. Dave Roberts said he took live at bats again today, so they're going to reassess things tonight and tomorrow. I believe Smith is scheduled to speak with the media tomorrow before the game, which I think is a good indication, meaning that he's probably going to start. But there also is the conversation of, how healthy is he and would he impact the pitching rotation and the way Ben Rortvedt's been calling a game, or on defense with a fractured hand on his throwing side. Like, that's kind of a hard thing to overcome. But they did ask, Roberts today, what's the status of Smith? He is healthy. He will be on the roster, and they will continue to carry 3 catchers. So your takeaways on Smith, do you think he'll be in the lineup tomorrow? And if he's not fully healthy, do you think he should be in the lineup tomorrow, or do you still go with the hot hand with Ben Rortvedt?
See, I think he will be in the lineup just because Dave likes writing for his guys, and I think if Smith says he's healthy, he'll play. But ideally, I think I do want Benny Rowe back there calling the game, and it's nothing against Will Smith. It's just he's not. I don't think he's 100% healthy, And my biggest fear is if something happens, we saw with Tommy Edman already, where he kind of like the ankle starts barking and he misses the game. Thankfully, again, we played the Reds, so it wasn't that kind of a big of a deal. But we're playing against Philadelphia, and say like by freak accident something happens and he takes a foul ball right back to the arm again, and like he just feels something, I wouldn't want to risk that. At this point, I feel like he's better off being an option as a pinch hitter. I kind of like that more than him kind of going out there and playing in the game, but we'll see going forward. It's kind of just like picking from one catcher to the other. I like Ben Rortvedt, the way he calls the game, but I also like Will Smith's power and the ability to come in through in clutch situations. But I also feel like Ben Rortvedt's not actually an automatic out there. He kind of puts the ball in play as well too. He can lay down a sacrifice, which is also awesome, especially because Otani kind of follows right behind him. So I don't know. We'll see, but I have a feeling that Will Smith's name will be penciled into that lineup tomorrow whenever it goes live.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the thing to watch. How healthy is Smith? How is he feeling? And especially if he's in the lineup tomorrow, catching Otani, how is he going to feel there? Especially say someone like Trey Turner gets on base, really fast speed. Will Smith, credit to him over the last 2 or 3 years, he's improved a lot on defense. While he's not the best pitch framer per se, he's done a really good job in holding on runners and throwing out runners. He ranked in the 87th percentile in base stealing. So that's something that is definitely going to be on everybody's minds on the Phillies side. If they get on base and he's behind there, like, are we going to challenge him? Is he going to feel comfortable throwing down to first base or second base or third base for whatever situation may arise on the bases? That's going to be, the storyline revolving around Will Smith and how that could impact the little things. So I do think he probably is going to be penciled in tomorrow, but I also wouldn't be mad if Ben just remains as the starting catcher, at least for tomorrow. And then you get the off day on Sunday. Let's reassess things on Monday. And if he's really good to go, feel confident with him taking being behind the plate that day. Getting Will Smith's bat in the lineup would be huge. The only other scare for me is that he's missed almost a month or a little bit over a month in a couple days here. So how cold would his bat be going? He didn't swing a bat until that Mariners series. And even then, he was only hitting foam baseball. So he didn't get the feel until the wild card series when he started facing live pitching for the first time. I like the trio of 3 catchers. I like the ability to have Dalton rushing off the bench because he is a switch hitter. So whether it's from the left or the right side and you need him to come up in that situation, I like that. If Will Smith isn't, fully healthy to be behind the plate, I like him getting a pinch hit opportunity. We didn't get to see it in the wild card series because they didn't need it in the wild card series. I mean, they took care of the Reds handedly with the starters that they had in there. But I think it's going to be important to get a right-handed batter like Will Smith into the Dodgers lineup just because of the amount of left-handed starters and the left-handed pitchers the Phillies have. You're going to see a lot of right-handed batters in this Dodgers lineup. They're going to have to step up. Teoscar is going to have to continue his hot streak. Alex Call may get some opportunities, whether it's late in the game or maybe he gets a start or two, whether it's tomorrow, game 2 or game 3 against one of those left-handers. But yeah, you're going to need to see the right-handed hitting group step up big time against these left-handed stars that Phillies have. And Will Smith had a career year this year, man. Like, if it wasn't for him getting injured, he possibly could have beaten Trey Turner for the batting title. He was kind of going neck and neck with everybody up there and led I think he was leading in batting average by the time he got hurt. And then Trey Turner, overtook him in the batting average. So Will Smith's bat is something that you would definitely miss, but the Dodgers have been playing well enough without him. But if he can get back to that, what we saw in throughout the entire season, clear advantage for the Dodgers, behind the dish there. I like it. I want to see it. I would be confident if Smith's behind the plate, but it's definitely something I'm going to keep my eye on for this series. But kind of moving on here, we've talked about Will Smith. We talked about Glassnow, Kershaw, all that stuff. The environment of Citizens Bank Park, I feel like, is definitely going to be the storyline for tomorrow specifically. But how excited are you to just see postseason baseball in this format here at Citizens Bank Park? 2 of the best juggernaut teams in the National League. Clearly, a lot of people around baseball are saying this is the World Series, or whoever wins this series is possibly going to win the World Series. What are you expecting from the Dodgers tomorrow, at least?
Yeah, I'm very excited for tomorrow's matchup. Like I said, the earliest memories of postseason ball is when Manny Ramirez was playing those Phillies teams with Ryan Howard, Jimmy Rollins, Chase Utley, all those legends and stuff like that. And we went into Citizens Bank Park and kind of got cooked out there. But yeah, I expect it to be no less raucous. I feel like they'll be out there early, pre-gaming, tailgating, all that fun stuff. But I don't think it's such a daunting task to go out there and win a game. That's all I'm asking is kind of go and win one game. I'm not asking them to sweep both games. Ideally, yeah, I would love them to come back 2-0 into LA with a chance to kind of win to go to the National League Championship Series. But all I really need is just one win, and then we'll go from there. Otani, I feel, has played in these environments before, and I feel like as well, Bryce Harper, it's kind of like a battle of two generational stars. One being Bryce Harper, this guy that many people talked about when he was in high school was going to be one of those guys that will be catapulted to like baseball legend, and he's kind of lived up to that moment. And he's only the only thing missing off his resume is World Series champion. That's the only thing that's really missing. He had that opportunity to win the World Series, didn't end up happening. But you have Shohei Ohtani on the other side as well too, who's kind of that generational star as well, who could do it both from pitching and on the plate. So I'm kind of expecting nothing more or less than fireworks because you also have not only our guys and Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman, but you also have guys on the other side like Trey Turner or Kyle Schwarber, who's played in many postseason games, and I feel like he's homered in every postseason game that I've ever watched him play. So I feel like it's just going to be the thing that gets people nervous is kind of just the buildup. It's not even the game itself; it's just the buildup because there's been 2 days in between where like nothing has happened, and we're kind of just like reading articles or getting quotes from both sides, kind of like being respectful to each other. But like at this point, I kind of just want to play baseball at this point. This is why I kind of hate those 2 days in between because it's like, all right, let's just get to it. Let's like first pitch, where you at kind of deal. But yeah, I'm excited for just baseball tomorrow.
Yeah, I think leading up to it, I'll give you my takes on why I'm a little nervous and excited at the same time, but it's something that it's kind of been a narrative since 2022, and that is the Dodgers just have not played well against the Phillies at all. Since the Phillies kind of entered that World Series window, they are they have 15 wins and only 10 losses to the Dodgers, which it seems close, but 5 games over 500. At this stadium, the Dodgers are 4-8 since 2022, and even this season, the Phillies won the season series 4 games to 2. And we talked about that 3-game set at Dodger Stadium. It definitely could have went the Dodgers' way if it weren't for the bullpen at the time going through their worst stretch of the season, blowing games left and right. You can talk about the Dodgers possibly winning the season series and sweeping Philadelphia against the same 3 left-handed starters that we will see more than likely in games 1, 2, and 3. I know the Phillies manager hasn't announced game 2 starter. Maybe he's going with I'm going to trust my guy approach and say, hey, Aaron Nola, you've been there before. Maybe you start game 2 and break up the lefties and see what we got. But I imagine it's still going to be those left-handed starters. But yeah, the Dodgers and Phillies regular season head-to-head, how much of that do you take into a series like this, or do you personally think it doesn't matter?
See, I take a little bit into it. Kind of just like I felt like we did get it to Duran. I know Andy Pa has had that monster home run off him, but I don't think it's going to be the same thing as it was a couple weeks ago. I think once you get into the playoffs, you gotta just have to throw the regular season away. Like it doesn't really matter what ended up happening. Yeah, you take little things in here and there, like our bullpen kind of struggled against their top end guys, but I think we're not gonna throw Anthony Bonda out there tomorrow as an opener for Shohei tomorrow. So we'll go and see from there. But you do take little things like that, kind of like matchup wise, like okay, I guess I'll use Bryce Harper for example. He really struggled against this pitcher, but he really cooked this guy. You kind of take it into consideration, but I'm not going to build my playoff decision making based off what happened during the regular season. It's kind of play it by feel, see what happens, what works. Because there's been times in the playoffs where you game plan, and then there's just like a random Eddie Rosario who decides to turn into Barry Bonds for a series, basically. Probably a bad example using Barry Bonds because he didn't win a World Series, but things like that end up happening in the World Series. You can't really game plan. You game plan for the stars, and then something ends up happening where a role player kind of just dominates the series, and you kind of go back to the at the end if you end up losing that series, like, well, we didn't expect that to happen. So you kind of take little things into consideration here and there, but I wouldn't really take what ended up happening in the regular season for granted, or for what I wouldn't take it as full play.
Yeah, I think that that's definitely the way I would take it because obviously the Dodgers managed a lot of those games a lot differently, and hell, three of those games came at the beginning of the season. Like so, like how much of that are we really going to take into account? Like what happened in April isn't going to impact what's going to happen tomorrow and the next couple games. So I like the series that happened September. I think there's definitely going to be notes to take from that, and even the Phillies starter Christopher Sanchez spoke about that because he knew he didn't have the best start in Los Angeles. He knew the Dodgers hitters kind of, had a good, first round practice against him because they knew eventually maybe these two teams were going to collide. And here they are getting ready to face each other tomorrow. I'll ask you this as well. There's a lot of players or things to watch for the Phillies, but what's the one thing you think the Dodgers really need to keep in check? I know you mentioned Bryce Harper. Like, obviously, that guy's like an October hero. Kyle Schwarber, he's probably going to be top 3 or top 5 in National League MVP voting this year. Like, almost hit 60 home runs. What's the X factor for the Phillies that you think the Dodgers really need to neutralize if they want to win this series?
See, I think it's the guy that's hitting in front of both those players is Trey Turner. I feel like if he gets on base, he's going to just create havoc. And we saw it firsthand when he was playing for us in the regular season, at least, that whenever he got on base, I felt like there was always a high possibility that he's going to end up scoring because he's going to steal a base and our guy's going to find a way to bring him in. So I think Trey Turner is going to be my X factor. And Duran as well in the bullpen. I feel like, yeah, we kind of caught him here in LA, but again, I'm not going to take that into consideration. Mostly because I feel like these guys are going to be like, well, I had this game plan 3 weeks ago. I'm just going to throw that away and I'm going to build a different game plan when I face these guys now. It's kind of a game of chess, basically. So that didn't work this first time. Okay, let's try this now this time. But yeah, I'm going to put Trey Turner specifically on the offensive side is going to be my X factor. If he has a big series, I think we're in trouble.
Yeah, Trey at the top of the lineup is definitely something to watch. He's had a really good season this year before he got that hamstring strain at the end of, in the middle of September. Kind of, I think he led all of the Phillies in F WAR, even beat out Kyle Schwarber. That's just because of how good he was on defense this year at shortstop. So yeah, Trey Turner is definitely a good player. I love Trey Turner when he was on the Dodgers. I know a lot of fans are kind of like 50-50 on him, but he was really special when he was on the Dodgers. Probably he peaked on the Dodgers until this year because even his first couple years in Philly weren't up to par to what he was doing with the Dodgers and the Nationals. So that's the guy I'll watch. Bryce Harper always scares me, but I feel like the Dodgers always handle Harper pretty well. I always think back to 2016 in the NLDS when it was Washington and the Dodgers. I feel like Harper was like non-existent in that series, and that was like the one October series I remember where Harper didn't really contribute. Every other one he kind of had made his mark, especially with the Phillies. I think of like his 16 home runs, 8 or 9 of them are in a Phillies uniform or even more, if I got that one wrong. But that guy shows up. If they can silence him and a lot of these other batters in their lineup, I mean, that would tell me, one, the Phillies or the Dodgers pitching staff, whether it's the starters or the bullpen, clearly executed their game plan. But I think it is going to come down to the Dodgers just silencing their bats and at least taking one of these games in Philly. So it's going to be exciting whether that's tomorrow or Monday if the Dodgers can win, or hell, if they win both of them, man, that'd be something if they sneak away with two wins. I'm expecting a split at least there in Citizens Bank Park, but we'll see. The other thing I look at why the Dodgers line up really well against the Phillies, and we saw it in Los Angeles, is I think the Phillies just swing and miss. Like I mentioned that before, I think the Dodgers, the craftiness of their starters, especially Blake Snell, I want to see what adjustments the Phillies make because Dodgers, Dave Roberts announced his rotation for at least the first 3 games, and Blake Snell will start that game too. I mean, I feel like the Dodgers starting rotation kind of has the Phillies number right now. Until I see the Phillies make adjustments, I feel like I'm always going to take the Dodgers starters in front of us right now. Going Otani, Snell, and then Yamamoto, I mean, that's going to be a tough task for the Phillies lineup. If anyone can do it, it is them, but I feel like I'm really liking what the Dodgers starters are doing right now. I mean, like, how are you feeling with the way that rotation is lined up, especially with the possibility of Glass now in game 4? And then game 5, you can go with Otani on regular rest, or you can go with Blake Snell on traditional rest of like 4 days. How confident are you in this Dodgers starting rotation the way Dave Roberts lined it up?
I think this is the postseason where like I've been the most confident in the starting rotation probably ever, just because of the names that you have on this list. And like I've said it many times, and I'll keep saying it many times before. I have the utmost trust in any of these guys to go out there and go 6 strong or 7 strong even. I kind of do like the idea of having Blake Snell kind of start at game 5 maybe on traditional rest, and you again, if it comes down to it and you have Otani out as an option, quote unquote, out the bullpen if you do need to get a last 3 outs, I wouldn't do it. I kind of like what I saw from Roki, even though I wouldn't call him my traditional closer. I think he's kind of more of a hired gun, depending on where the leverage is at the highest, whether it's the 7th inning, the 8th inning, 9th inning. I kind of like him going out there and kind of doing his thing. But yeah, these starters again, I feel like that's the reason. The biggest reason we'll end up repeating as world champions this year is because of the starting rotation. And then the second reason for me would be the offense. And thankfully, these first 2 games, the offense has been clicking. I feel like in prior postseasons, I've always felt like it's always going to be the offense that lets us down. There's going to be runners on and not going to come through. And it feels like everyone's kind of clicking. And I hate to say it because the regular season's ended, but if you look at it, the last 2 games against Arizona, they won. They swept Seattle. Again, Seattle was kind of more like a let's just get through this without any injuries. And they're up 2 against the Reds. So they've won 7 in a row now. If you date back to the last couple games in the regular season, maybe we're kind of in the midst of like the Dodgers, during the summer prior years, they would get super, super hot through like a 2 month stretch. Maybe we're just in the middle of one of those kind of like stretches. And hopefully we are, and it goes all the way towards the World Series and we repeat as champions. But hopefully they did find something and they kind of like fine tuned it and they're kind of just locked in and they're just going to ride this heat wave they're on.
Yeah, I the 7 game win streak is definitely something to look at because there's nothing, they haven't had many breaks. They've had 2 days off in the midst of that, stretch of games, and to win, they swept Seattle, and Seattle, to their credit, didn't sit any of their starters. They threw their regular starters in their rotation as well. And the Dodgers took care of business there pretty easily, and they were the ones that were kind of experimenting with things. Sheehan going 1 inning, Glass now going 3 innings. Kershaw was the only one that got like a traditional start, threw over 90 pitches, 5+ innings. So to sweep them, I thought was a good thing as well to end the season on a high note. And Dave Roberts even admitted to that as well. And then you sweep the Reds in handsome fashion, scored as many runs as they did. The pitching staff was excellent. It was just the bullpen. But even I mentioned, low leverage. How much credit are they really giving, with the adrenaline, all that stuff, getting put in situations that they're not really going to be in, possibly in this round and then future rounds. Kind of closing it out here, though, we talked about the Phillies X factor, but for the Dodgers in particularly, what do they have to do to win this series? Is it the offense? Is it the pitching? Is it the bullpen, like everybody's saying? What is, in your opinion, the reason why they would win, they would beat the Phillies is because why?
I'm gonna go with their situational hitting has to be, I don't want to say perfect, but timely. I feel like we're gonna find ourselves in a lot of close ball games, and it's gonna come down to who had better situational hitting that day. You can't find yourself in a scenario, and there's a meme that goes around like the Dodgers bases loaded. It's their biggest kryptonites when they have the bases loaded. But I feel like it's going to come down to situational hitting, and it's going to come down to our right-handed bats, Teoscar Hernandez, Andy Pajas, just because the Phillies are very left-handed loaded on the starting rotation. At least I feel like it's going to be a key factor for us. Is going to be our right-handed guys that come through and kind of like move that needle for us. Teoscar had a really, really good series against the Reds that first game. He kind of broke out. Andy Pah is kind of like teetering here and there. I feel like he'll find his groove coming into the NLDS. But yeah, I feel like our right-handed bats are going to have to be the X factor going forward.
Yeah, I think you could point to a lot of things and make an argument for it. The offense staying hot. I mean, they were the best offense last October, and that ended up carrying them through, a World Series championship. The starting rotation, can they continue their dominance? The bullpen, can they revert back to some form of relevance, like average? If they're even an average bullpen, they would probably be very set up very well for this series. I'm actually going to go with the managers. I saw a tweet earlier today. I think it was from a Phillies writer for like a blog, and he put out, I would give the advantage to like Rob Thompson in this situation. I was like, I don't really agree with that, and that's not even me being a Dodgers fan. That's kind of just me looking at the facts here. Dave Roberts is a two-time World Series champion, and last year, obviously, everybody said it. It was last year was his best year managing, especially managing in October. I think the way Dave Roberts is going to have to, manage, whether it's pinch hitting certain guys and especially bullpen management, who he's bringing in, how late he lets these starters go. It's going to be a lot of touch and feel there. Trusting Dave Roberts' decisions, I would say, is going to be the advantage for the Dodgers this series, just because I trust him now in terms of what he's going to do. Like, for him to go out the other day and pull Emmett Sheehan in a 1-2 count, I think he saw what we all saw, where if Emmett Sheehan was left out there to finish that inning, who knows how many runs he gives up, who knows what happens in that inning. Dave Roberts, had that running in his head, and he said, you know what, we're going to end it now. We're going to go to the next arm. And Dave Roberts has been around the game for a long time. He's been the Dodgers manager for a long time. He's been successful. And I think if he pushes the right buttons, especially in the early games, like games 1 and 2, like how far does he push Ohtani? Like, does he read it right? Does he go immediately to Tyler Glassnow? Like, who does he go in the bullpen in game 1? That's all going to matter. And I know Rob Thompson's faced his fair share of criticism in Philadelphia as well. But we mentioned, with Vince, last week, or earlier this week, where the Phillies kind of got some issues going on in the clubhouse between some of the players, like Nick Castellanos and the manager. How much does that bleed into October, especially so late in the season? That's going to be what I'm watching, but I think that's going to be the X factor for the Dodgers, is how well does Dave Roberts manage it, because some decisions could win you games and a lot of decisions can lose you games. And Roberts has been on both sides of that coin. But I would say he's got the clear advantage in that situation. Do you have like any thoughts on that before we get ready to close it out?
Yeah, there's a quote that Shaq actually says that if the general doesn't panic, the troops won't panic. And I feel like Dave Roberts has kind of earned those battle scars as far back as he started managing. Yeah, a lot of people kind of gripe of the past. Yeah, he's kind of made some bad decisions in the past, but you have to go based off his most recent success. And that's kind of like the postseason of last year. And I like that he kind of went out there because he saw what was happening with Emmett Sheehan. I think with Sheehan, it looked like he was just out there dying of nerves. I couldn't tell like if that's just performance or like the nerves just kind of got to him. But yeah, I kind of lean towards Dave Roberts having the edge in that series and that advantage for us. I feel like his prior history, just like all the bad things that have happened and all the good things that are happening, are going to play a pivotal role for us in this series.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens. Game 1 starts tomorrow. All I can say, it is going to be a good series. It's going to be a stressful series, and it's going to be must-watch television, whether you're a Dodgers fan, Phillies fan. If you're just a fan of baseball, you've kind of been waiting for two teams like this to meet, two juggernauts, two high payroll teams that go out there and spend money and trade for some, high-priced talent. They do the job the right way, and the Phillies respect the Dodgers' way of doing things, and the Dodgers respect the Phillies' way of doing things. And now they're finally playing each other in this best-of-5 series, and I'm super excited for it. For tomorrow, we will have a pregame and postgame show reacting to everything about the game. Hopefully, we'll have a lineup to discuss, and then hopefully after the game, we have a victory to talk about and celebrate. But other than that, DodgersBeat.com, that's the stuff where you're going to check out all of our articles, all the pregame notes, all the postgame notes, recaps, all the latest news and rumors. That's where you want to check it out. Me and Steve Webb been typing away. I don't know how many articles I've written over the last, several days, probably at least 40 plus articles. So be sure to read all the stuff we got out on there. And then on the website, all our YouTube videos here on the channel. We just hit 21,000 subscribers, So that's definitely a huge milestone for us, and we only want to continue to grow. We definitely want to have conversations with everyone in the chats, especially when we go live for episodes like this, pre-game shows, post-game shows. We want to hear from you. And then if you weren't able to join us in the live, leave us a comment on there after, continue the conversation. But we'll definitely have content. All the interviews are on our YouTube channel right now for the NLDS workout day. We got the Phillies side, we got the Dodgers side. So be sure to check that out if you want to get more information about the Dodgers. But Anthony, before we close it out, any other final thoughts before we get ready for tomorrow?
No final thoughts. I guess I'll leave you with this. Do you know if you can drive from San Diego all the way to Cancun, or do I have to book a flight from there? That's my last final thought for you. But other than that, I'm excited for tomorrow. It's going to be a stressful series, but I prefer playoff games to be stressful, considering how easy I felt the first two games for the Red Series was. But let's go Dodgers, and I'm excited for tomorrow, game one.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a Bleed Los podcast episode without a slight at the San Diego Padres season ending. But yeah, we'll be back here tomorrow before the game, around an hour or 30, 40 minutes before game time tomorrow. I believe it's at 3:38 Pacific, 6:38 p.m. Eastern time for me over here. Weather's changing, Anthony. It was cold today. I think the high here by Philly was like, I think 68 today. I think tomorrow it's supposed to be a little bit warmer, but we got baseball weather in October, and I'm excited for it. But we will be back tomorrow. All three of us will be here reacting to the game. So thanks for anybody that joined us today, whether it was on Instagram, X, Facebook, and YouTube. And we will see you next time.